Hey everyone, I am super excited about today's episode. We're going to kick off a 4-part series where we dig into leadership styles and tactics and how to implement them. This is going to be a ton of fun. Now, if you've never been here before, welcome. I'm Jody Haar, Leadership and Management Coach. This is Velocity Leadership. Before we dive into today's topic, I'd like you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button below the video to stay up to date on all of our latest content. Now, as I mentioned, this is part of a series that dives into 4 really popular leadership styles. So make sure that you watch all 4 videos to see which style works best for you and what you can learn from each of those styles. Now, if you've done any research on this topic, you already know there are a lot of different views and approaches to this subject. This is really what I've observed over my last 20 years of leadership and leadership training. So there are multiple different philosophies about leadership style. Just pick up any book, do a Google search, look on YouTube for a video, and there are literally hundreds of different viewpoints on what styles are, what's the best approach for the team or the leader. And one of the misconceptions that I see within this is that many leaders feel that they can only be one style, or you can only learn one approach, or you can't change, or you just are who you are. You know, the old adage of you can't teach an old dog new tricks is what comes to mind. But I don't think anything could be further from the truth. My experience tells me that the better you get at this and the more you know the different leadership styles, the more you can apply each of them differently. And just because you lean towards one particular way of leading people now doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't try a different approach for that same team or at a later date. Personally, I've learned many different ways of leading people. Some I learned on purpose, others I kind of just stumbled across. And I implement each one of them differently depending upon the situation, the team, and the organization, and what the goals are. So really, you need to be flexible in your approach and willing to try different things and make changes as the needs arise. So getting into the 4 styles. So the 4 styles that I find are most common within the managers and leaders that I've worked with are, number 1, your authoritative or transactional. And that's what we're going to go over today. Number 2 would be your servant or people first approach. You've got number 3, which is your democratic or participative. It's also known as laissez-faire. And then you've got number 4, which is your transformational or coach type leader. And we'll do videos on each one of these. So the views in the definitions of each style really do vary depending upon whose information you're looking at and who you're referring to. So I tend to keep things very simple and straightforward. I'm a simple person. I like simple. And it makes it easy for me to understand, and it reduces the confusion for those that I'm working with or coaching. In this video, we're going to talk about the transactional or authoritative approach. We're going to show examples of how it can be used and how it can be implemented in your own business or in your own style. Now, in an age of emotional intelligence or political correctness, this approach does get a bad rap. Hopefully we can kill that myth today because I find this to be a very effective approach given the right environment and the right circumstances. So your transactional or authoritative leaders are very focused on the end result. Everybody knows one or has worked with one of these types of leaders in the past. Heck, you could be this type of leader, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Like I said, they can be very effective. They're known as being hyper-focused on achieving the end result, very goal or result driven. You give them a goal to achieve, and that's going to be the sole focus of that entire team until they get there. This leader, with this style, usually comes up with the entire approach on their own. They'll design the plan, and then they'll figure out who's going to do what and how they're going to execute, and then they'll let the team know this is what you're going to do, this is what your job is, and they get very little input from the team, hence the name authoritative. Now, this approach can work really, really well if the team's constructed of people that work well in this environment. Now, there are 2 main types of groups that really strike me as this being super effective for. Number 1 is a group of people that know their role. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. They need very little reinforcement. You just say, hey, this is your job. go out there and get this done, and they're going to do it. They don't need you to constantly look over their shoulder and watch them and ask for feedback. They're very good at executing on their own. Number two is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. It's your newer group of employees. They need much more direction and hand-holding, and they need someone to tell them exactly what to do. I think they can thrive in this environment simply because it helps them build confidence. Because they're new in the role, they don't know what they're supposed to do, so it's much easier for them to just focus on one thing, go get that done, come back to the boss and say, hey, what am I supposed to do next? And then they can get their next task. And it's much easier for those people to flourish in this environment. Now, when you're looking at the leader, this style works really well for a new manager. If they've got no experience, this can allow them to establish themselves. They work in a much more black and white environment. It's more rules-based, and it allows that new leader to build confidence because they know, hey, I've told this person to do this, and I can follow up to see if that specific thing was done. And so there's less gray area that this manager or leader is trying to work in. Now, the watch out for this style overall is the communication style of the leader. If the leader comes across as a dictator and only really cares about achieving the goals of the metrics at all costs with little regard for the team or the individuals on the team, there's going to be problems. You're going to have infighting, you're going to have backstabbing, you're going to have the potential for people to just shut down and no longer participate, and this can be really counterproductive. So you have to watch your style and your communication when you're leading in this type of environment. So, for example, one of my first leadership positions was in a VHS recording facility. Now, I'm completely aware that I'm dating myself here. Many of you have probably never seen a VHS or a VCR, and you have no idea what I'm talking about. But there was a day back before Netflix, if any of you remember back that far, where if you wanted to watch a movie or a video, you physically had to go to a VCR, put in the video, rewind it, play it, and then pull it out and swap out another one. Now, I'm going to cut to an image here so you can actually see what it is that I'm talking about, so you have some clue as to what I'm referring to. But anyway, so we work in this huge room full of thousands of VCRs, and each one had to be loaded and unloaded by hand. My role was to ensure that everyone was staying on task. They were QCing the videos as they were being recorded, and then they were accounting for every tape as it was loaded and unloaded. Now, keep in mind, this isn't rocket science, but it still took someone to be accountable for what was going on in that room. And at this time, I was really young. I was in my early 20s. I had no training or experience in leading people. But I knew from a very young age that I wanted to lead. I felt like I had this calling to lead, so I took the role. And the only style I had modeled up to this point and had seen was authoritative. If I look back at my coaches, if I look back at the way my mom raised me, it was very, you do this, go get this done, take care of it. So that's exactly the model that I had, and that's what I did with this particular group. And here, everyone had a role. My job was simply to ensure they knew what it was and performed it well every day. Now, we also had metrics to hit, and we had numbers to achieve every single day. We had a certain amount of videos that we had to cycle through every day, and I was held accountable for making sure we hit those numbers. So that's what I did. And overall, it worked really well with this group in this environment. I didn't have to be a jerk. I didn't have to be a dictator. All I had to do is teach them the rules, what the expectations were, and hold them accountable for hitting our targets. And it worked really, really well. So there's absolutely a place for this style and can be super, super effective in the right environments. An important call out here, though, is the communication being clear. You have to make sure that you're consistent and you're transparent as you're communicating with the team. By treating everybody fairly, in providing positive feedback to the team, also making the proper course corrections as they come up, you can be wildly successful utilizing this style with the right team. I just don't know if I'd use it all the time, and personally I don't. I use it when I need to, and then I'll shift and pivot to a different one if I feel that it's not being effective. So that wraps up my view on authoritative leadership style. I hope you find this topic as interesting as I do, because I think this is a very interesting conversation to have and makes us think through how we're approaching our different leadership styles and how we're leading our teams. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and drop a comment below the video. Tell me what you think of this style, if you use it and how you use it. I'd be really interested to see what your guys' thoughts are. And don't forget, go ahead, hit the subscribe button below. It does help out the channel and I really appreciate it. Hey everyone, before you go, I want to tell you about a free resource I have for leaders of any level that are looking to dramatically improve your performance right now. It's called the 30-Day Map to Success, and what I've done is I've taken my 20 years of leadership experience and wrapped it up into an easy-to-use and actionable mind map that allows you to quickly go through, identify tasks, and implement them into your schedule that are going to dramatically improve your performance and the performance of your team. It's available at vldsecrets.com. The link is in the description below this video. So go ahead, click on the link, get your copy today. Like I said, it's totally free and it's great for leaders of any skill level. So what are you waiting for? Get your copy right now and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.